All right, hello stream. This might go up on the second YouTube channel. Today we're gonna be doing a difficulty tier list. Now this is just for fun. There's been plenty of regular tier lists. I'll probably make one at some point, but this is just my impression of how hard characters are to maximize. We'll probably talk a little bit about like how hard a character is to play for tournament and how hard they are to maximize, because those are not always the same. For example, there are really hard optimal combos with Seoul, but the practical ones are pretty easy. And the ones you need to win in tournament are it's definitely easy. All right, let's Google GG tier list. Is there a maker somewhere? Oh, here we go. Here we go. All right. Difficulty tier list for tournament specifically. Wait. Presentation mode. Specifically for tournament, right? So we're not going to be talking about like, oh, what is the hardest combo you can do possible with Seoul. We're going to talk about like, what are the actual needed ones? What are, you know, and this also does not count only for what is the hardest possible thing you can do with a character, or like it doesn't qualify all mistakes as similar either. So if you make a mistake with, let's say Ram, the punishment is not usually as severe as making a mistake with like a momentum based character such as Ino, for example. So for those characters, it's far more important to like not fuck up their pressure, their meaties, their timings, because they're not supposed to win in neutral, and they're maybe not good on defense. The easiest characters in terms of like how forgiving they are to make mistakes with are characters that dominate in neutral, have high health, high damage, and you know, good defense as well. Like fast buttons, fast DPs obviously help a ton, because this makes it really hard to you know, actually punish them and for playing like lazy or playing in an easy way. So obviously Golos is not out. If we're gonna talk about ease of character, so the easiest, so this is like, I guess we'll put like this: higher equals easier. So the easiest character, all right, no, higher equals harder. That makes sense. So we'll start at the bottom. Obviously, Giovanna is really fucking easy. I hope no one can actually argue with this. Like, Giovanna has an extremely simple game plan, very one note. She gets in, she frame traps you, strike throw. With meter, she can do high-low. She block strings you, she stagger frame traps you, but her game plan is extremely simple. She gets rewarded for not spending meter, so meter management is not as crucial as some others, which really helps, mostly at low levels. At high levels, it's somewhat of decision making. Easy confirms into super because she has multi-hits. Yeah, just incredibly easy. She has like, you know, confirming 5k is not super easy, and like, keep in mind, there's not a single character here that has no def that is actually easy to play at the very top level. But, you know, we're just talking about, like, overall game plan. She's very easy. The problem is she doesn't have a reversal. But that almost makes decision making even easier for Giovanna, since she kind of just mashes 2P or tries to do the standard options. Nothing really complicated. Has auto-timed safe jumps as far as I know from most knockdowns. Gets hard knockdown of everything too. So like her Oki is very static. Like she almost always gets the exact same Oki, which is hard knockdown into either safe jump or meaty. Keep him. Okay, let me remove all the other characters so people don't get confused. What other characters are easy? Anji is very easy as well. Very, very basic character. You know, has a canned mix-up in Fujin. You can do spin. Spin, you need to know a little bit about the opponent's character, what moves you can spin against. But in reality, it's pretty simple as far as like S normals and H normals get punished. Kick normals get punished in the first active frame. Jump normals are always minus. I mean, always plus against spin. Projectiles are usually plus against spin. Butterfly Oki is auto-timed for the most part. Like, this is not talking about how hard it is to win a major with Anji. This is like how hard it is to use the character's tools in a tournament. Anji is easy in tournament because your run not lasting long. True. But yeah, very easy character. Obviously you still need good fundamentals, but yeah, pretty easy. Next up we have Faust. This character is a little bit hard to rank. I think super optimal item usage could go as far as like A- or maybe low A. But like everything except for items is down here. Like the only actual complicated move Faust has, in my opinion, is items and how to play around them. You could argue that like mix and teleport is not the easiest tool, but honestly, I think they're very much par for the course in terms of like you really just want to use them when you have meter. And you don't use them that much otherwise, so that further simplifies his move choice without meter. The combos, you know, they're not hard, but they're not extremely easy, I suppose, but still on the easier half. For, like, one of the easier characters for sure. Then I think... Again, keep in mind, I have not played all of these characters extensively. I have played Faust, I have played Anji, I have played Gio. But not, like, a ton. But I have played those. And I will talk about the characters I have not played, but obviously you can take that opinion with more of a grain of salt. Other easy characters. I would say we probably have Ram here. Ram has some tech, but most of it is auto-timed. Like, she has, you know, high-low in the corner of throw that no Ram player does. But it's like super easy. You like fall, air dash back, or 2S, and it's generally buffered, easy to confirm of. Very easy combos. Pressure, you can pretty much read from a flowchart. You don't really need to like adapt your pressure that much as well against the opponent. It's mostly all auto-timed, or like buffered. And that's extremely powerful to have in a tournament. The thing that's not hard about these two characters, I would say, is that their general game plan relies a lot more on like controlling the opponent's space. So like you have to anti-air, you have to, you know, respond somehow. And Ram definitely does have matchups where like and Faust of course too, but especially Ram has matchups where like far S and far H are not like as dominating, and that's when you have to like kind of play around her other tools. But generally, you can play most matchups with a core of anti-airing, 5S, 5H, 5K, and then air dash back S and jumping heavy, and you'll be fine for like 99% of cases, outside of obviously like pressure and combos. So your gameplay is very simple, but very, very good. Again, the strength of Ram's options here help her a lot because her easy shit is also her strong shit. So it makes it very straightforward to perform in tournament because you're never really in question about what your game plan is supposed to be. Then we got Kai. I think Kai is slightly harder than the Ram. Kai does have more tech. He does have more like FD setups and stuff like that, but he's still like simple for sure. His toolkit kind of just makes it very easy to play mid-range. Like you do a lot of in plays, normals as Kai. You know, you throw fireballs, stuff like that. And I think the shock state and how to use his fireballs correctly and stuff like that is what makes him harder than the Ram. They're a lot more character specific, and Kai requires a lot more whiff punishing and harder confirms, like 2S into Ride the Lightning, 6P into Ride the Lightning. Things that honestly Ram doesn't really do much. Ram doesn't really one-hit confirm much. Occasionally 2-hit confirms with like far S Daru into something or far S 5H Daru RC. But yeah, still very basic character. We have Mei here. I would probably put Mei because she's charge and because she actually has harder setups that some people will do, is about here. Her neutral game plan is incredibly simple. She literally has super dash. You play your own game in every matchup basically, so you don't really have to learn matchups nearly as much as other characters because you only really have to learn what to do when you're defending. Whereas most characters need to learn how to like, you know, play neutral. And yeah, you know, she has some harder stuff. She has setups. She has optimal combos. But, you know, what's actually needed and what you see 99% of the Mei players do is like down here. But I think like to win majors, she's going to be up here. But keep in mind that like to get to heaven, she's here. She's the easiest character to win with at low level by far. Just dealing with Dolphin is like extremely hard for most people, and it's just such a high entry to barrier to like actually know how to play the RPS game that only she really gets to play. Yeah, super easy counter hit confirms, like super easy like game plan, air to air. Like the opponent has to, everything's on the opponent to make Mei even play like a remotely complicated game plan. Then we got Potemkin. Potemkin has some execution, so like you have to know how to Kara and stuff like that. But overall, Potemkin's incredibly simple still. Like you get in, you do Garuda Impact, you do Garuda Impact again. Half their health is gone. You guess, you win. And back Mega Fist and like, you know, his insane throw range make it very easy to scrub out like a defensive option. Obviously the high health helps. And you know, kind of has the similar game plan as most characters, where it's simply get in, Garuda them. But because he is so slow, he has to use his tools a little bit more specifically than some of these other characters. This tier list is not based around how hard it is to win a major with any of these characters. This tier list is based around how hard it is to play this character to its potential. Then you still need to play your opponent. You know, obviously winning with Anji is far harder than winning with Ram, right? If you're talking about how hard it is to win a major, like, you know, Anji could be up here, but that's not what it is. This is simply like how to maximize the character, or like how to use the character as it's used in tournament. How much work do you need to put in? I know this is going to be hard, and obviously this is subjective, but yeah. Next up in A-, we have Axel. Axel is very easy because this is another one. He's like budget Mei, where like everyone else plays against Axel, and like Axel controls the game from round start. Where like Axel players will play run away, keep away game plan against every single matchup. If you put Axel against Potemkin, Kai, Mei, Ram, Faust, he plays his game plan is exactly the same. What tools he does obviously differs, and this is where he becomes a little bit harder, but he is very, very, very simple. I honestly might put him here. But he does have hard combos with Chike Bomber, which you don't see many Axel players actually do in tournament, but because of that, we put him here. And yeah, like you need to know a little bit more about like keep away and like, you know, how to defend a bit more, in my opinion, than you do with these characters. But I definitely don't think this character is like S2 or anything. Like that, it's hard to win with Axel in some matchups, but like that's because he's bad in that matchup, not because like he is hard to play in that character. Like you still basically use the same couple tools. But yeah, you also do need to pressure in some matchups, and like, so you do need to have like a little bit more of a varied game plan than like a Potemkin who literally has only one. I feel like difficulty tier list is less necessary given the existence of the game's difficulty rankings. No, shut up. In-game difficulty rankings are completely irrelevant. Who do you have next? I think next up is probably Seoul. I actually do think Seoul's harder to play than Axel because Seoul has so many good tools. Right now, he might be like easier to win with because, you know, you kind of only need to press forward slash in most matchups. But he does have really hard combos. He does actually have some harder setups. And because he has a ton of tools to use effectively, so often do you see even pretty good souls like completely forget about Wild Throw, Fafnir, 5P, 2P, 2S, 2D. Like, yeah, it's hard to say. Like, this is really up to interpretation of how strong you think Seoul is. If you think Seoul is triple S tier, then like he might be down here just because like you can literally only press forward slash. But at least Seoul needs to play differently versus Axel and Potemkin and Mei, whereas many of these other characters only have one game plan that they play against 99% of people. And also, Seoul's combos are harder than any of these characters. Like the optimal shit, not the shit, you know, that like most souls actually do. And the thing is, and here's the thing, for many of these characters, there are optimal combos, but they are not worth going for in tournament. Soul's hardest combos are worth going for because they literally go from taking 2 hits to 1 or 3 hits to 2. Whereas many of these characters, they have harder combos, but 99% of the situations, you don't actually need to use them to lower the time to kill. Like, you will kill in 2 or 3 hits regardless. And yeah, like, I know there's super specific, like, high combos and super specific Mei and Pot, Axel combos, and Faust item combos, but yeah. Anji's easy in the tournament. It's actually incredible how dense people are. Like, again, it's not easier to win with Axel than to win with Seoul. But to maximize Axel's tool... No, sorry. Anji. It's not easier to win with Anji than Seoul. But to maximize Anji's tools is very easy because he doesn't have that many good ones. And again, I think Seoul's the by far best character in the game. I whine about Seoul constantly. He should definitely be nerfed. That does not mean that he is the easiest character in the game. When Potemkin was S tier in the beta, that was worse. Trust me. It was far worse when, like, literally 90% of Celestial was pot players. And then in the next beta, when he was nerfed to high tier instead of SS, all of them disappeared. Like, Mega Fist was plus. Or at least safe. I'm not sure if it was actually safe. And so was Hammerfall. Then we have Ino. No, wait. Then we have... Shit. Then we have... Oh, no. Am I forgetting anyone? Then we have Nagoyuki, I think. Nagoyuki's game plan is very simple. Like, his game plan is very, very simple. But because of Blood Rage, it introduces a ton of decision making you have to do and how to manage it. And he is very unforgiving to mistakes. Like, if you drop your pressure or if you fuck up and overextend your Blood Rage, you can die for it. Ultimately, though, I don't consider Nagoyuki extremely hard to play. But maybe this will change as people use more tools. But right now, his neutral is very, very simple. You basically, like, use your broken buttons on the ground that are extremely hard to whiff punish, like 5k, 2k, 6p, 2s, 5s, 5h. And then you have a couple anti-airs that, you know, you make the opponent have to jump essentially. But obviously your anti-airs are a little bit below average in terms of like how safe they are. Overall, you know, it's not super hard. Huge grab range. Highest effective health in the game, by the way, even more than Pot. So this makes his actual... He can actually make a lot of mistakes. But it is not extremely forgiving because Blood Rage does take so much more health. And yeah, like, you don't need to learn that much about movement. You don't need to learn too much about, like, stuff like that. Like, you can use your specials. Beyblade is an incredibly easy tool to use. From what I've seen, doesn't have super hard confirms either. I might be wrong about that, but, like, it feels like you use, like, 4S, Chain, 2S, 5H, like, 2S, Beyblade. Like, a lot of it... He doesn't seem to have a lot of one-button confirms. Next up, we have Ino. Wait, no. Leo. So, Leo, honestly, and this is honestly, like, I honestly might do this. I think I actually will. And this is like, listen, I need you to understand that the average Leo player is like 2 tiers below Geo. Leo actually has a ton of tools. He actually does. Do you know that Leo has reverse beats? Do you know? I don't think you do. Because the average Leo player never ever fucking reverse beats. They only do 5S, 5H, 5S, 5H, 5S, 5H. Right? He has hold cancels. He is charge. He can do 6H, 2S. He actually, if you watch Omito play him, yeah, his DP is fucking brain dead. Don't get me wrong. His actual effective game plan is really easy. But he does actually have more complicated stuff than most people realize. Yeah, reverse beat is when you can Gatling in the reverse way. So like you can go from heavy to S instead of S to heavy. This argument is the same for Faust though. No, because Faust only has one hard aspect, which is items. And Faust's game plan versus almost everyone is to throw items and keep away. Leo can play mid-range, can whiff punish, can aerial approach, has a dive kick, and has the best fireball. This does mean that he is incredibly strong. I think he's second or third best in the game. But it does mean that he needs to use a lot more different game plans depending on if he's playing against Axel, Potemkin, May, or Seoul. The neutral cross-up move is crazy. But I do think that, like, against good opponents, you can't use it, like, too easy. And the fact that he has options to reset the opponent, like, most characters, when they get a far S in neutral, or like a regular combo, they have one special that they will almost always cancel to, right? You know, like, for Ram, it's Daru. For Faust, it's usually mix. Anji, it's Fujin. Giovanna, it's her 2-3, 2-1-4 kick. Whereas with Leo, you do actually have to make a decision of whether or not you want to cross them up or not, and you hunt for counter hits a little bit more because they give you stance cancel. Again, the average Leo is actually fucking brain dead. Like, trust me. But he can be played harder than you guys realize. Also, his mix has so many options that to go from like, you know, to go from having good mix to godlike mix up actually does require labbing. Because he can do cross ups, he can, you know, jump over you, he can stance cancel. How many layers do you face that use 5S in stance into stance cancel, which is burst safe, or 2k stance cancel throw? Yeah, basically he has a lot more options than people realize, and I genuinely think this, even as a Leo hater and as someone that thinks Leo is incredibly dumb and his easy shit is brain dead. I think his optimized stuff, like if they nerf him a little bit, will be up there. For now, I'm gonna keep him in A, but I will put him above Ino. There seems to be a pretty big split between characters that need to consider the matchup and how they play, and other characters that don't. Yeah, I think that's definitely a contributing factor. I do think Leo does need to play matchups differently. And I do think that, like, you know, depending on what reversal he's dealing with, depending on if you, like, making the decision, do you want to keep them in the corner by resetting them and, you know, knocking them down, or do you want to break the wall? That is a decision a lot of characters don't make in this game. A lot of characters like Kai, like Ram, they basically always break the wall. Not always, but like they should 95% break the wall. Whereas Leo can, like, you know, he can reset you and hit you out of the corner and stuff like that. And Leo also has two different stances that a lot of people don't know. People usually only know one. And because he has two different stances, that means he has more normals than most characters, right? Like, he has far more normals than Nagoyuki to consider. Someone said, pot low? Yeah, pot is low. Pot's game plan is incredibly simple. He does have Kara back fist combos, but I think they're pretty easy, honestly. If the input is hard to you, I'm sorry, I guess, but like, it's quarter circle back and then forward and then plink, which I don't think is that hard. And honestly, most people do not use Kara back fist combos because he does enough damage without it. Now, again, this is not trying to say, I am not trying to say at all that lower here means that you should be ashamed of playing an easy character. Not at all. Not at all. Kara backfist requires... Yeah, I know there are hard combos with Pot, but again, you don't use them that much, and his game plan is incredibly simple. There are hard combos for most of these characters. I have clarified a billion times. People join 2 seconds in and they're like, oh my god, I can't believe it. Leo's above Ino. Shut the fuck up. Sit for a while and then ask questions if you still have them. You fucking idiot. Ino, I think Ino's very hard to rank because she kind of constantly takes risks. And this is a problem where, like, it's really hard to know what's just reading the opponent and what is simply playing the character. Ino's neutral is, like, in some ways just straight RPS sometimes, where, like, you're either looking for dive kick, them to stand still and press her good buttons, or stroke. Right? And this can make her seem really easy in some matchups, but I do think that because she does have some more mix-ups, some more stuff like that, I think that, like, she definitely does have depth, and she can use her super in different ways. She does have like a lot of different ways to spend meter. But I think a lot of Inos do really fine with just doing her very basic high-low. She kind of has a lot of canned mix-ups in which like you do air dash, jump K, and then you either do dust or low. And, you know, there's specific counterplay. You can backdash no. I know. But overall, I would say she is pretty simple compared to the other mixed characters, the other three we have left. And she is not charged like Leo. She plays more uniformly, in my opinion, depending on what character she's facing, than Leo does, who has, you know, his fireball actually is a keep out tool, so he plays keep out in some matchups, whereas Ino kind of looking for different ways to approach against everyone. I guess maybe like Pot, I've seen Ino play a little bit more defense. But the reason why Ino is harder than Nagoyuki and Seoul, for example, is that if Ino drops her pressure, if she misses her safe jumps, if she drops her high-low, like, she loses a lot of her momentum. She only really works if you're actually hitting her combos, hitting her setups, and you keep the momentum going, because she doesn't build too much meter naturally. She doesn't have any great defensive options without meter, so she really relies on you to not fuck up too much. I wouldn't say that she needs to play perfect. She does not have like very low health, and she doesn't have like Millia defense or Sauda defense or even Axel defense or Faust defense, because she does have a 5-frame normal, and her reversal super is very good. But still, I would consider her to be harder than the rest. I already talked about Seoul having hard combos. Do we have effective health? Can we look at it? Someone link me it. Maybe on damage. Ino is 6th lowest, yes, but she is pretty close to like she's tied with Ram, and she's very close to Faust, Giovanna, and not that far from the rest. So she has a little bit lower health, but I wouldn't consider her like 84, 85, 89, 9%. But yeah, maybe a little bit. Maybe I overstated her health a little bit, but yeah. So then we have the top 3. I think if you like, some people will say like, oh my god, Leffen, you just want to consider the characters that you play the hardest. And like, listen, I don't give a shit what you think. I legitimately, in every fighting game I play, I go after execution characters. I like practicing execution. I like having unforgiving, low health characters. I have a type that I like to play. I almost always try to pick the hardest character. I did not pick the hardest character in this game because I do not consider it worth it. And this is not saying that like I like losing. I will pick hard characters when they're worth it. I will not pick hard characters when they're shit. Like, I'm not gonna pick Sauda in this game because I don't consider him top tier. And he's, you know, we don't even have to front. Sauda's by far the hardest character to play in this game. He's not as hard to play as the previous games in terms of like combos, but his game plan is arguably more difficult to execute. And this is from listening to like Nokami and other Saudos than previous games. And I'm sure he's only gonna get harder as more and more setups keep coming up. He's extremely unforgiving to play as well, because if you ever drop a combo or a setup and the opponent mashes out, now you and Eddie both die. Or like you hit him and Eddie. Now you have red regen. You have shit defense. You have no reversal, even with meter. You have to like air throw a lot. You have to like use P, like a lot of P normals, which does not give any actual return, like no combo without meter. You have to play around YRC and burst. He is very, very good at playing around burst. YRC he's pretty good against. And there is counterplay, but the fact is that he does have to consider all of these things and reversals, which makes him a lot more difficult to run. Obviously, he has negative edge. He has all this shit. His combos are not extremely hard, but his setups are extremely hard. At the very least, you need to know a ton of different setups. A ton of different setups. Like, you know, you don't necessarily require all of them, and you can use 5D dust, but like, I think if you want to win majors with him consistently, there's going to be more and more setups keep coming up that keep surprising the opponent. And there is a big incentive to keep coming up with different setups, because you will have even more like knowledge advantage than the opponent. That said, do I think like, you know, Sauda is harder than like Melee Fox? No. Do I think he's harder than like, you know, the hardest characters in some other games? Probably not. But I ultimately think that a character doesn't have to be that hard. I think Sauda is in a very good spot where he's hard, he's unforgiving, but he is not so fuck new players type level where like you can't even do a bread and butter if you haven't spent like hundreds of hours. To people saying that this game is easy, I don't think it's very easy at all. I do think that there is less character-specific stuff to lab in terms of combos, but I think setups, I think the RC system and playing around your opponent, IBing in this game, a lot of things like that will become very difficult. And yeah, like stuff like whiff punishing is one of the hardest fighting game skills in my opinion. And this game rewards whiff punishing so much higher than previous Guilty Gear games, who, according to many people, including Kisuke, basically did not reward whiff punishing almost at all for most characters. Or like, it wasn't worth playing around like, you know, reaction whiff punishing stuff. Okay, so next up we have Millia. I think Millia is one character that is incredibly unforgiving, but most of her setups are not that hard. So doing disc oki is pretty easy, I would say. It gets harder when you have to option select for DPs. You have to FD for Leo's DP, and like you have to know very specific setups and timings for some characters, depending on what the reversal is, how to play around goal burst, stuff like that. And her bread and butter is pretty hard, which is the reland combo, because when you account for heavier characters, stuff like that, you do need to confirm pretty quickly. You do need to like manually time a lot. A lot of her resets are manually timed. S-disc cross-up is manually timed for a lot of them. And it is very hard to make S-disc consistently cross-up. So like she actually has stuff that would be incredibly good for her, like S-disc cross-up, but almost no one uses it outside of like one setup because it is too hard. And I think most of these characters do not have something that would be so essential as a high reward 50-50 that they simply do not go for because it is too hard. I can't think of one with Seoul. Can't think of one with Ram, you know, Faust, Pot. Yeah, so the disc setup people do use is falling S after combo start, but even that one can be hard depending on character and weight. And then we have Chip, which is the character I currently play. I don't think Chip is insanely hard, but he is very unforgiving. I guess we could talk a little bit more about Millia. So, okay. Before we go to Chip, I think it's important to highlight why I think Chip is harder than Millia. And the reason why I think Chip is harder than Millia is because Chip has a lot more good options. Millia kind of does in neutral. She jumps around, or she does 5k or 5s. She can use 6p too, but like generally she is trying to move around you, get in or whiff punish you with 5s, 5k, Sometimes 2k, but generally you use these buttons like a lot in neutral. Her difficulty comes from like controlling a very fast character, and obviously being very unforgiving that like if you do get anti-aired, you fucking explode, and your defensive options are very limited. But her defense is not that hard because it is so limited. Like, she kind of very, very, very heavily emphasizes jumping out. You FD them out, and then you try to jump into Capel or like Turbo Fall or Air Dash out, or you mix it up with dashing out. And she doesn't not have that many different ways to actually get out of the pressure. So it makes, like, in tournament, it is pretty simple to be like, yeah, I just need to get the fuck away. You're not really trying to mash that much with Millia, so you don't necessarily need to know like a ton of the frame rate, a ton of the gaps. And then we have Chip. I think Chip is significantly easier to play than Sauda. He is a little bit harder to play than Millia. I would consider a bit. And remember, I would rather play Millia than Chip. At least that's what I thought before, but you know, I would still probably lean towards Millia. If Chip and Millia were equally good, which I do not consider they are, I would rather play Millia. So don't put this like, oh my god, you're just putting the character you main higher. Like, I thought Chip was harder even before, but then when I played him, I also realized that he has a ton more options than people realize and people did not already use. You know, my 4-way mix-up that I quote-unquote invented is one of it. The wall cling combos. He has specific reset timings for all of his normals in the corner. He has a ton of viable, but still not like brain dead broken mix-up tools. So like with Chip, it's not as simple as it is with Millia when you have, you know, when you're trying to mix them up. Let's say you have 50 meter with Millia. You do close slash, and then you either do Bad Moon, which is true block string unreactable overhead. Then you RC up, and you do a 3-way mix-up of high in front, high behind, or low. But you can also turbo fall into low behind. It is very formulaic. It is a strong enough mix-up to where it's not really worth experimenting more than that. Like, you should not really be doing, like, other meter spends. And then you also have the option of, instead of doing 5S Bad Moon, you do 5S, delay a tiny bit, 2S, which is a low. If they block that, which is, again, it's a read because you can do Bad Moon, then you can do S disc, which leads into the exact same mix-up as the Bad Moon, which is cross up high, low, or, you know, high in front, high same side. And again, this is like a 3-way mix-up. As long as the opponent mixes them up, you have an incredibly high chance of hitting. You don't necessarily really need to do anything more. And I would say that generally when you see Millia players like overcomplicate their meter usage, it ends up turning bad for them instead of accepting that they have a 4-way mix-up or 3-way mix-up and then just sticking to it. But yeah, why is Chip harder? Because when Chip has meter, he needs to use a lot more different specials. There is not one special that you can always use. And yeah, you can get far because Chip is a strong character with just using like your meter on like, let's say the overhead. But there is a lot of incentive to learn how to use fast RC, which Millia almost never uses. Blue RC, which Millia almost never uses. How to use it with both command grab, throw whiff RC, 6K into fast RC or into slow RC, alpha blade into up or down RC, like P alpha blade, like K alpha blade is one you use the most, but gamma blade RC, which is a whole completely different mix-up, command grab, whiff RC, and obviously just like confirming. With Millia, it's you generally do it like super from if you use like meter to confirm. It's not too hard generally. You generally have 2 hits to confirm. with Chip, there is more incentive to do one-hit confirms, like far S or 2D into his K super. Bad move fast RC is hard as hell, but you also don't really need it because it's much better to do the up RC. 99% of the time. And yet Chip has really hard combos, wall run combos. He has incredibly character specific combos, like dummy hard specific combos. He has like really tight Tiger knees, like Tiger knee alpha, P alpha blade is incredibly hard to convert off, and very, very spacing specific. And he has a ton of different normals that are useful. Chip in neutral wants to use 5k, 2k, 6p, 5h, 2hs, 2s, with cancel, and 5s. In the air, he wants to use all of his different normals for different reasons. Whereas with Millia, there really is not that much reason to use normals such as like 2hs or 5hs or jumping p or jumping dust much in neutral. You can use them, but you don't use them as much. And I would say, like, for example, like Millia has her least used special in Lust Shaker, which is not useless, but it is rarely used. Chip wants to use shurikens significantly more because there are more uses for it. Yeah, I do think it's really funny when you see like floor fivers be like, oh my god, you're so wrong about this character. Actually, as a floor 8er, it is really hard. You don't understand, Leffen. This is not about how fucking hard it is at floor 8. What use does Shuriken ever have? Shuriken has plenty of uses, actually. It is a very hard tool to use without like just being silly, but it does legitimately have uses. You can, for example, use air dash in Shuriken to bait out anti-airs. You can do it because it safe jumps DP in specific setups. You can use it as a dive kick same side, as a mix-up to lowest hit possible Alpha Blade, which is another hard setup that is actually useful. Also, Chip has 3 different ways to wall cling. He can run off wall cling. You know, yeah. If you legitimately think that Chip is not hard to play, I guess go ahead. I don't give a shit. I think he's very clearly number 2 in this game. Very clearly. Significantly harder than Millia. I would maybe put Millia down here, if I'm gonna be honest. The only reason why she is not here is because you could argue that because she has garbage defense, you have to be really good on defense. Like, you have to be really, really, really good at not fucking up. I will also say that Chip makes a lot more decisions on defense. He can jump out as Millia, but his jump out options are not as strong. Like, he can't just jump out and capple. So he actually needs to use like jump, double jump, triple jump, shuriken, dive kick, K alpha, P alpha, and he also has incentive to use 2K, 5P, 2P, and DP on defense. Whereas Millia kind of goes, I'm gonna 2K, I'm gonna 5K, or I'm gonna jump out. Yeah, that's basically it. Now let's look at what the game considers. I'm not really interested in arguing with anyone that's anything below a tournament player, by the way. Frankly, I don't give a shit about what randoms think about their character. If there's someone that actually enters and consistently top 8s that wants to argue about their character, I'm more than happy to hear why their character is hard. I could very easily be wrong. I don't play every character. I am not interested in hearing what randoms think, though. This is not a list to rank how hard it is to get to Celestial. Okay, so let's go. Giovanna is... I think the game agrees with me on Giovanna. Where is she? What? She's 4? Kai is the easiest according to the game? Anji is 3? Faust is 2? Leo is 3. Potemkin is 3. Ram is 3. Eno's 2. Sauda's 1. Yeah, so even the game knows that Sauda's 1. Okay, at least they put May on 4. So, Seoul on 4? Nah. Chip on 3? Yeah, the game considers Millia harder. Game considers Nago harder than Chip? Bro, what the fuck? Yeah, I guess the in-game one is for floor 8. That is true. That is true. That is true. Because, like, Chip at floor 8 level is just doing 10 command grabs in a row. I also think this tier list, like, ranks a little bit how hard it is to perform specials and how to move in the game. Where, like, yeah, Sauda's always hard for everyone. But, like, you know, Eno is hard because, like, you have to control her completely differently from any other character, right? Same thing with Potemkin. Like, you don't have an air dash. You have to Kara. Like, that's hard for a new beginner. I don't think it's very hard to Kara at all once you're used to it. Anyway, that's it. Hope you enjoyed. Do you have any disagreements? Actual good players? Axel 1 star. Game considers Axel a 3. Dude, the people that were mad about Seoul and Leo are blind. I think I could consider Leo a little bit lower, but I do think being charged, having 2 like reverse beats and 2 stances make him harder than most. I don't think Leo's hard to play on a playable level, but I legitimately think that he does have hard shit. Seoul is easy to win with. That was not the question. That was never the question.